You're listening to the FairTax for All radio program, where we bring you everything and anything fair tax related. And now, your host, Alex Molesky.
I just love the lyrics, man. My buddy Chris Barron could write some, man. I want to welcome you all to the FairTax for All radio show, where our discussion is centered around current U.S. income tax code and the IRS. Our main goals are to educate and inform in order to eliminate the IRS and our horrendous tax code. Listen in for this next hour, and I promise you that you will be entertained and learn something, I hope. I love on my intro how I say we talk about everything and anything fair tax related. It really is a catch-all. It's kind of like hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders don't upset us. Well, you know, we might be big someday. We might be big, as in tax reform big. In the beginning of my show, folks, I like to give you a brief introduction of the bill that will eliminate the IRS in this tax code and replace it with the fair tax. The bill that eliminates the IRS is called H.R. 25S122 in this 113th session of Congress. It replaces the current tax code with a national sales tax of 23% on new goods and services not used. So there'll be no more FICA taxes collected out of your paychecks, that's 7.65 or more, and the 23% sales tax that collects the tax dollars at the register. Those are the ones that are used to fund Medicare and Social Security. The fair tax does not, I repeat, eliminate any government plans, just the collection method of taxation. In addition to replacing the income tax, the fair tax also provides each Social Security card holding person a monthly prebate check to cover the 23% sales tax up to the poverty level. This is not welfare, folks. It is only to ensure we are not taxed on necessities of life. The government sets this rate. The fair tax also lowers the tax rate on every tax bracket and at the same time helps to address the issue of our growing unsustainable national debt. No other plan does that. No other plan does that. Any other plan that I've seen that lowers or addresses our unsustainable national debt raises taxes, not the fair tax. This is a plan that also shrinks the size of government and puts every American in a better financial position. Please go to fairtaxcalculator.org and enter your own numbers. I know what you'll find there. You'll be screaming for the fair tax. Last week on our show, we were, for all essential purposes, the IRS show. Typically, I mix it up, give you a story of the IRS if I have anything going on. But I decided the other week that last week and this week should be used as an example of IRS-related stories that I find that are less than a week old, so trying to keep it very current. The idea behind this is that there's always something going on in relation to the IRS and how the current tax code makes it either impossible for the IRS to run efficiently or in what seems often the case to be the IRS is used as a tool to intimidate us. We also had Craig Bergman, the writer and producer of the movie Unfair, exposing the IRS on for a few minutes. It was a very busy man last week, this week, and every week. It was a good show. And like all the past shows, it's up on podcast and video up at Molesky.com. So check it out at MELUSKEY.com if you want to check it out, or any of the other shows. I typically put a little description of the show on there so you can say, hey, oh, that's right up my alley, and you can check it out. Next week, Jeremy, I'm going to next week already. This week on our show, of course, I'm getting the word out about the nationwide movie release of Unfair, exposing the IRS. It's a one-night-only movie just 3 days from now on the 14th at 7 p.m. I want you to go to unfairmovie.com. That's unfairmovie.com for more information on how to get tickets. It is a huge nationwide event, and you do not want to miss it. That's unfairmovie.com. Today, I'll have grassroots coordinator from the Unfair Movie on. That's P.T. Burton, and I'm going to give him a few minutes to talk about any last-minute information we need to know for the movie. Plus, as I mentioned, I have plenty of IRS stories from this past week. I can't make it up. They just keep giving me so many stories. Gets sent to me, and I just log on to the computer and I see IRS stories. Now, I promise next week I am going to get back to some more topics, not so heavily IRS flavored. Who am I kidding? Changing the tax system is intertwined with the IRS. Maybe what I need to do is go out and find some IRS employees that would speak with me off record. I have met some, and they are just like everybody else. You have good people and bad people all over the world. I know the movie is coming out this Tuesday, and you might leave the theater in an enlightened yet perturbed mood. That's fine. I just want to remind you to use that energy in a positive way. Keep it clean. You know you get more done with passionate yet controlled passion. You know, more bees with honey. Okay, that's enough on that request. I just want you to listen in for the next hour, soak up some great FairTax information, and after the show, Mr. Dennis Prager, the FairTax fan, will be on to inform and entertain. All right, let's move on. What do I have today? I am not going to play for you, because it's just mostly a video format. The Lois Lerner video, I'm sure many of you have seen, about the reporter that was following her around and asking questions, invading her privacy, I guess. I don't know. I guess he was just trying to give her a taste of her own medicine. But you can find that if you just Google Lois Lerner walking her dog interview. I don't know. It's just, it's kind of amusing. I feel kind of bad for her, but yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for all the people that have been audited and her people are going after. And speaking of that, reminds me, well, where is it? Where's my story I made a note on? I want to bring this one up because they're at it again. And as I said, it's all IRS, but I want to thank the Washington Times and Jessica Chasmer for most of this information I'm about to share with you. And she wrote, the Washington Times wrote, questioning if the IRS is targeting it again. I can't tell for sure. She can't, but this does seem a bit suspect. So I'm not going to bet against it. Get this. On Tuesday, it was reported that the producer of a new movie, not unfair, but one that criticizes Obamacare, he's reportedly become the latest prominent conservative slapped with an IRS audit. Logan Clements, who's the producer of Sick and Sicker, Obamacare Canadian style, announced via press release this past Tuesday that he is being audited for the very first time. I can't tell his age, but he's got to be in his 40s, at least late 30s. I have no idea, but been filing for many years. So the first time, he stated that I had never been audited before I made this movie. There seems to be a pattern here. The news came 1 month after conservative Breitbart News announced that it too was being audited and that the action was probably politically motivated. Mr. Clements' movie makes the case that Obamacare will eventually lead to socialized medicine like Canada. Now, I'm not sure about that, but it doesn't seem fair. In his video, he says the IRS is demanding a ridiculously long list of documents, including a detailed description of all transactions related to all prior year returns and supporting documentation. It sounds like a fishing expedition by the IRS to tie me up for a very long time in retaliation for making a movie against Obamacare, Mr. Clements says. Perhaps they were hoping that voters wouldn't see my movie before the election by keeping me tied up in a battle with the IRS. Well, in fact, their action is going to have the complete opposite effect. The conservative vowed to fight back by releasing Sick and Sicker immediately to entire states online using a statewide open screening license in order to get the message out before November 4th. All I can say right now is Craig, John, Saul of Unfair the Movie, be ready, you might be next. Or just maybe we'll be able to take the success of the movie that I'm hoping will assist the masses in rising up to say enough of the IRS and enough of the abuses of we the people. I just wanted to share that. I can't believe it. Yet another movie maker, Dinesh D'Souza speaking out, Ben Carson speaking out, not making movies, but speaking out on Obamacare, Logan Clements. Doesn't seem fair to me. Does it seem fair to you? I don't know. What do we got going on here? What do I have going on? Actually, you know what? We're going to go to break in a little bit, and then I know I'm going to have PT on, which I'm very excited about. I want to read some of the things that are going on. Let's see what we have. Well, you already know about the 14th. We're going to talk about that. I just wanted to remind you that I'm going to be at Desert Ridge Theater, AMC, to watch the Unfair movie. The event starts at 6:30, but the movie at 7. So get there early. I'm very excited to help host this great event and hope that you will be there. As I mentioned before, definitely, reach out to the theaters now. Go to unfairmovie.com. You can find out where to buy the tickets. It's probably going to sell out, at many of the theaters nationwide. It's at 700 theaters, so you can probably find one of mine sold out, or if it does sell out, let us know. Let me know, alex@molesky.com, and I'll try to get a second screen opened in the theater. There are at least a dozen theaters in the area showing the movie in Arizona, so if you email me at FairTax question, what is it, alex@molesky.com? Yeah, that's good. Email me, or, if you can't, you need some help, and I'll help you out. On the 25th, Saturday morning at 10:15 a.m., we will be at the Wounded Warriors race in Cave Creek in North Scottsdale Road. That's actually, where's the intersection there? I think it's Lone Mountain and Scottsdale Road. It's right near the AJ's grocery store. We usually park in the lot and walk over to the corner. I may or may not be there myself. I want to be there, but I might have conflicting events. But there will be some good FairTax supporter and patriotic Americans out there waving signs, supporting these great heroes of ours that are just having a fun time racing. But it's fun to cheer them on because they are heroes and athletes too. On the 25th and 26th, the Prepper Fest will be held at the Equestrian Center at Westworld, right off the 101 in Scottsdale. I have never been to a Prepper Fest, but I am very excited because they've always intrigued me. Just might be a fun time. I'm going to have a booth. Unfair might have a booth, so check it out. Go there. I'm very, very excited about this. I'm sure after the movie we're going to have a lot of questions about Unfair. So check it out. If you're familiar with the area of the 101, folks, if you're an Arizona resident, it's north. Let me see. It's around the Pima exit, Raintree exit, I think, is, if you're on 101, you see the big horse statue. But anyway, I have all that information online. And next week, I'm going to have Tony, who's running this whole thing, on for a few minutes. Don't know if it's FairTax related, but I'm just pumped about this event. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back, and hopefully we'll have P.T. Burton with us on the show. Take care. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, here on this beautiful evening. In my show, sometimes I make comments to Jeremy. This is not an imaginary person. Sometimes you hear him talk back. Jeremy, just say hello.
I feel like Pinocchio. I am real. I'm real.
Yeah, you don't have a big nose at all, man. Actually, we both have small noses.
Oh, I thank you very much.
I guess. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it all, depends on your face.
If it works, exactly. Yeah, we're really off topic here, folks. But anyway, a lot of the times I'll say something, I'll comment and say, yeah, right, Jeremy, and then I'll keep talking so he never gets a chance to chime in. Anyway, I was talking about events. Specifically, I've been all over the Unfair movie this week and last week and the week before. It's about exposing the IRS. And I'm excited about it. I've had people on to talk about it. I've had Craig Bergman on a couple times. But I'm excited right now because the grassroots coordinator for this movie, P.T. Burton, is on. P.T., do I have that title right, my friend?
Technically, yeah, grassroots coordinator, whatever you really want to call me.
I'm calling you a good guy to chat with. We have a lot of fun when we're messing around, just chatting about FairTax and everything. But you know what? Easygoing man. But a professional, a consummate professional, and he's on top of this. I wanted to have you on because it's only 3 days, here Saturday night. Let me see. It's less than 3 days now because 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the movie will be live in the theaters. I want people to get there by 6:30 if they can, because there might be some information in front, people handing you little forms out or giving you instructions of how to tweet and text and everything. But what do we need to know with 3 days left? What is there to do that we need to get done to make this movie a huge, huge success and to get key, listen to this, folks, tax reform? And I'm not kidding about that. What can we do, PT?
Well, one of the main things that people can do out there is just talk about it. You know, get the word out there and with their friends, their family, their coworkers, everybody. And you know, here's the beautiful part: no one, liberal, progressive, conservative, likes the IRS. It's a gigantic open platform for dialogue. Just get it out there. You know, bring your friends. By all means, you know, let's bring our kids. Let's educate them too. A lot of parents are going to want to go and things like that. But bring your teenagers. You know, this is going to start affecting them as soon as they get their first job and they realize, oh, the tax man cometh. This is all of a sudden going to ring clear in their heads. So it's definitely worth getting our kids there, especially the teenage ones, and getting them educated early.
PT, I had my son on as a guest. I kind of came up behind him one day, and the show was coming on in 5 or 10 minutes or something. I said, Nick, I know you just got your first paycheck the other day. How'd you feel about that little number being gone? I was like, what the heck is that? He was cleaner than that even, but my son is a fiscal conservative. It's pretty funny. He's probably more of a conservative than I am, but it's, you know, he hears me talk about tax reform. He hears me talk about the IRS only being 100 years old, and he's a numbers guy, PT. He's a definite numbers guy. This is a kid that's going to probably be going to a top engineering school. So he, as a teenager, should be able to understand it better than most adults, I'm guessing. But yeah, get your kids out to this movie. And as PT just said, this isn't going to be a, you know, sometimes you talk politics. This isn't politics. This is something that affects every single American, every single United States citizen that pays any kind of taxes. And as we've said before here on the show many, many times, there's a FICA tax. So you know how like sometimes they say like the 40% Americans that make the least amount of money or that might be closer to welfare don't pay any income tax. If they have a job, where they receive a paycheck, they are paying income taxes. They don't call it income tax. They call it FICA. And that hurts them too.
Yes, it does.
This movie is going to expose the abuses. I'm sure, is it going to expose the language? What other secrets about the movie, PT, is it going to share with us? You know. Well,
it's going to show how the IRS, some of the things that they do are not just intrusive and financially damaging, but how some of it is downright illegal and unconstitutional. What other agency has the right to come in and seize your property without a warrant? None. Only the IRS. So these are things that, you know, that most Americans don't realize. That, you know, first off, there's too many people afraid of the IRS, okay? And we need to band together to stand against it, but also know what we're standing against. Because if we're not educated on it, then how are we supposed to stand up and say, well, this is what's wrong with it. This is where it's out of line. And know that, you know, there are lines in the sand. There are organizations and groups out there that will not just sit there and talk, but back them up as well. We make sure that we cover all of that. And one of the important things that's going to happen toward the end of the movie is a panel discussion with some of the people that are really integral to the fight against the IRS. And it's going to be a really open dialogue of ideas. Where do we go? I mean, we've got fair taxers and flat taxers, and we've got all these different diverse groups with diverse opinions. Mm-hmm. You know, and help us to get to a platform that everybody can get behind.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. I do a fair tax show here, PT, but I want to remind people this is not a fair tax movie. This is a 16th Amendment. This is a tax reform movie. It's specifically IRS. And I'm excited they're bringing this to our attention. But I tried to post somewhere on maybe one of the media pages of a Facebook page, or somebody else did it for me because they were excited about this movie. And I had a flat taxer come on and say, well, this isn't, the fair tax, promoting whatever. And I'm like, guy, I'm a fair tax guy. This movie is not a fair tax movie. It's about the IRS. And they're going to help us. They're going to bring things to your attention because part of my feeling, PT, is that, like you said, people don't know. This thing is over 100 years old, and it's kind of like, it's like I feel like we're all trudging along in like an Orwellian 1984, just accepting the status quo because it's over 100 years old. And well, my parents always paid taxes, and they always paid taxes. So this is the awakening, right?
Well, that is the hope. That is the hope that it is enough of an awakening that people will start to coalesce. Something that, quite frankly, grassroots has a hard time doing because we get stuck in our own little opinions a lot of the time as conservatives, and we fail to recognize the validity of other people's viewpoints, even if we disagree. And the other part being that, as conservatives, we tend to take a Jeffersonian approach, and we stay in our bubbles. And one of the big things that my company is dedicated to is to getting conservatives to start stealing a little bit of that Saul Alinsky ground game and use it for a good reason, and get that social networking piece of the game in there, where we're communicating more. So getting a fair tax and a flat tax, or having a genuine discussion, saying, well, this is the basis of my ideas, and that's the basis of yours. Well, that makes sense. I mean, open that dialogue up.
Absolutely. I know we're going to go to a break in a minute, but just like I had Congressman Bridenstine, who has brought up the Repeal 16 bill, which basically said, let's get everybody to the table. We have a buffet of ideas, but we can probably come together with some real comprehensive tax reform. Folks, we're going to go to break right now. PT, I know you're going to hold over for a minute. I want to ask you a question about the panel after the movie, just after these messages. Welcome back to the Fair Tax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, and we are talking about the IRS, the fair tax, but specifically at this moment, we are talking about Unfair, Exposing the IRS, the movie, coming out October 14th, 7 p.m. That's Tuesday, 3 days from now, one night only. Get your tickets. Go to unfairmovie.com. And right now I have on with me P.T. Burton, who's heavily involved with the movie, and we were just talking about the movie, and you had mentioned, and I have mentioned, there's a panel right after the movie. I guess the movie's about 90 minutes long or so, and right after the movie's over, there's going to be a short panel for about 20 minutes. Can you share with us who's involved with the panel at all?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one right off the top, and I want to leave kind of the rest to surprise, because we're going to have some pretty darn cool people on there. But Mike Huckabee is going to be involved with that. And he has some interesting ideas. Some people agree or disagree with him, whatever. But he's going to be kind of semi-moderating along with Craig Bergman. And the other people that are on there, I think everyone will appreciate the viewpoints. And we tried to cover the spectrum with the people that are on the panel.
Okay. So people from all sides of the political aisle, if they would agree to come on maybe, or just different belief ideas?
Yeah, basically the whole thing I was saying in the previous segment about opening up the marketplace of ideas for discussion. And so we're trying to represent as many of the different viewpoints as possible.
Got it. And I mean, I know there are different ideas. There are ideas of the fair tax, which everybody knows about because I'm yapping about it every week here. There is a flat tax, which I have said I'm not a huge fan of, but I'll tell you what. If I were forced, flat tax is better than the current system. I think most anybody can agree with that. But I just think the fair tax is much better. I've always liked the idea of just getting rid of all taxation and going back to the days the way they collected taxes, through interstate trade and everything or whatever before, imports, exports before 1913. Mm-hmm. But bring them all to the table, right? Bring them all to the table.
Everybody's idea is valid. But it's finding the one that everyone can really get behind, and that will change the system to something that actually makes sense for the American people, not for the benefit of the government and the government's need to expend money like drug addicts.
Oh my gosh. I haven't heard it said that way, believe it or not, but man, that or somebody who just got the unlimited credit card, or, you know, who found untold wealth and doesn't know how to really keep it under control. It doesn't seem like that. It seems like somebody who just,
I compare them to heroin addicts. They can't wait for their next fix of the tax dollar.
Or somebody who was poor all their life and was going check to check, and then all of a sudden they won. Well, maybe not. If somebody who's poor all their life and won the lottery, they might still be very controlled. But the person you read about who wins the lottery and then the money's gone very quickly, it's like, what? Or the rock stars, or the basketball, or the football, or, you know, the athletes that didn't really have money and then got so much and couldn't manage it. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I'm wondering if all of our if DC is full of people that were professional athletes and rock stars. I don't know. Anyway,
hey, the analogy I got the other day was a friend of mine said that she works at a call center. She said she got somebody and said, you ought to be president and run the country because moms know how to use a coupon.
Oh gosh, that's funny. That's awesome. Hey, I'm excited to be a theater captain. I'm at Desert Ridge. I know a lot of people are going there. I've been speaking with a lot of my friends. A lot of groups that I've spoken at are excited, and they're going to go there because it's either the closest theater or they just like hearing me yap for 5 minutes before the movie. I know we've been working to get theater captains in every theater. Can you share where we're at with that?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good in the state of Arizona. Nationally, I'll tell you right now, we're having a national conference call with all the theater captains tonight. We have over 250 for the 700 theaters. That's not where we want to be, but you know what? There's a lot of people stepping up. But I'll be honest, I'm in my own backyard, and Arizona's a little bit on the light side, especially here in the valley. So, I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 theaters that we could use a captain for, and unlike everyone else that has to get it shipped to them, everything they need I got sitting in my office.
Right. We can get it to you pretty quickly. So even though this is probably after the fact, if you want to be involved in it, folks, reach out. Go to unfairmovie.com, or if you just want to, I mean, do you want them to reach out that way? Is that the best way still?
You know what? I'll tell you what, if listeners got a pen available, I'll give out the office line, and they can call here directly if they're in the Phoenix market. Okay,
we have 40 seconds to give them that, and I can give it to them again.
All right, it's 480-423-3402.
And I'm gonna repeat that after we go to break, because I know you're a very busy man. I'm gonna repeat information about that, about the movie times. I'm gonna put it up at my website too, and I'll share that with everybody in the next segment too. PT, thank you so much. I know how incredibly busy you are right now, but thank you for coming on and being with us here today.
Thank you for the blessing of being here, sir.
You bet, buddy. I'll see you Tuesday.
See you Tuesday.
Bye-bye. Folks, we're going to go to break right now. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the FairTax for All radio show. I'm your host, Alex Molesky, having a fun day in Arizona. We were just talking about the Unfair movie. Had P.T. Burton on with me. He's promoting the movie. And I just want to remind you, this movie that's one night only. They need theater captains around the country, and PT's in control of it. You should definitely call their office at 480-423-3402 if you want to be a theater captain. That's 480-423-3402. He's based in Arizona, and he's handling the coordination throughout the nation on theater captains. And you don't have to speak if you're a theater captain. It's just more about, being there, wearing the T-shirt. You'll get a couple free tickets, and you'll just be there as a representative. Just say, hey, welcome to the movie theater. Stay tuned. They're about to talk after the movie, so make sure you stay put. That kind of thing. It's fun. It's fun. You get free tickets and see a great movie, right? And when I mean great movie, Craig Bergman, Judd Saul, John Sullivan, they're all known factors in the business. John Sullivan, in fact, probably I use his name the most because he's in one of the more known products out there, but he was in half of the team that brought Dinesh D'Souza's 2016 Obama's America to the theaters. It's going to be a very well-produced product with a 20-minute panel discussion afterwards. It should be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward and hope to see you at the movie theaters then. I've got to move on because I don't have a ton of time left, and I have more stories than I have time. That's not good. How am I going to abbreviate this? Let's see what I want next, folks. What do I want next? You know what? Here's another doozy I want to talk about from the Internal Revenue Service, since we are concentrating on those bad boys. But the story you might know, but it bears repeating. And I want to thank Michael Cohn of accountingtoday.com for some of my information on this segment. On Tuesday of this past week, IRS Commissioner John Koskinen sent a letter to the leaders of Congress, major tax committees, urging them to decide soon on what to do about extending dozens of expired tax provisions, or else next tax season and the processing of tax refunds could be delayed. I was at a luncheon this Wednesday where my Congressman David Schweikert was speaking, and he himself was concerned about these extensions not getting addressed before Congress breaks on December 11th. A date he has some concerns about since newly elected officials barely have time to get their feet wet, and concerned that these extensions once again leave businesses and people wondering what to do going forward. As a business owner himself, the congressman knows the value of being able to plan ahead. For those of you that don't know Congressman Schweikert, I'm starting to find that he is not a braggart. I wish that he was a bit, because I know he's come up with some good bill ideas, specifically the term limits bill, which is very bold. But he's done a lot more for the people and is following a much more solid leadership path than I think people know. Okay, let me get back to the letter. I just wanted to give a little shout out to the congressman because he's too modest, I think. John Koskinen, the IRS head commissioner, he wrote that making this decision in a timely manner will allow the IRS to implement Congress's decision without unnecessary disruptions and delays to the upcoming 2015 tax filing season, and it will provide certainty for millions of taxpayers who are affected by the expired provisions. Koskinen wrote this Monday to the leaders of the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. He noted that the IRS's operational preparations for the 2015 tax season are now in full swing. The agency has been training its customer service employees, revising tax reforms and publications, and programming its technology systems to reflect changes in the tax laws. However, the uncertainty over the tax extenders is raising risks, including for tax professionals, Koskinen warned. Risks? What risks? That's what I want to say. The IRS is currently facing a great deal of uncertainty related to the expired provisions, which raises serious operational and compliance risks, he wrote. Continued uncertainty would impose even more stress not only on the IRS, but also on the entire tax community, including tax professionals, software providers, and tax volunteers, who are all critical to the successful operation of our nation's tax system. This uncertainty, if it persists into December or later, could force the IRS to postpone the opening of the 2015 filing season and therefore delay the processing of tax refunds for millions of taxpayers. What? Is that a threat? Moreover, get this, if Congress enacts any policy changes to the existing extenders or adds new provisions, the IRS would have to reprogram systems and make processing changes. Yeah, you know how good they are at that, right, folks? Which would, of course, result in longer delays. Now, if Congress waits until 2015, which I'm likely going to believe because of when the session ends, that's me throwing in there, folks, not Koskinen. Koskinen says if Congress waits until 2015 and then enacts retroactive tax law changes affecting 2014, the operational and compliance challenge would be even more severe, likely resulting in service disruptions, millions of taxpayers needing to file amended returns, and substantially delayed refunds. The House has voted to extend several expired tax provisions, such as the research tax credit, who Schweikert I know mentioned the other day, and also bonus depreciation. But the Senate has not yet acted on those bills, opting for a more comprehensive approach that is currently stalled. The congressional leaders have warned that the tax extenders legislation is unlikely to be passed until after the midterm elections in November, possibly during a lame duck session of Congress. My congressman thinks a lame duck session is a likely case. So great. Yet another year of not knowing how to complete my tax returns. Yay. Koskinen went on to ask lawmakers to act sooner to avoid these serious problems, and I respectfully urge you and other members of Congress to address this issue expeditiously and decide whether or not to extend the expired tax provisions, he wrote. I recognize, of course, that it is up to Congress to and the administration to make this important policy decision. Nonetheless, I would appreciate if you would share with your colleagues that it would be detrimental to the entire 2015 tax filing season and to millions of taxpayers if Congress fails to provide a clear direction before the end of November. I don't know what that is. Is it him deflecting the blame if things don't get done? Hey, that you can't put on the IRS. The extensions of these bills and stuff, that's up to Congress and the House to agree on this stuff and get it passed. Thanks, Commissioner of the IRS, for bringing this to everybody's attention. Don't laugh. Anyway, if you recall, last year the IRS was forced to delay tax season due to the last-minute extension of the so-called Bush tax cuts at the beginning of the year. In fairness to some of the committees, for example, the Finance Committee chairman passed legislation to extend many of the expired tax breaks over 6 months ago. And the Expire Act with strong bipartisan support. The bottom line is that Congress moves in a decisive and bipartisan way to renew expired tax provisions that will give taxpayers the certainty they need to plan their finances. And according to the IRS, the longer Congress delays action, the greater risk that the tax filing season and millions of taxpayer refunds will be delayed, among other serious disruptions. I don't know. I'm torn, folks. Torn between wanting the extensions to expire so we could just have another reason for getting rid of our tax code. Maybe, possibly. The flip side is I don't want to not know how to plan and don't want my fellow Americans put upon any more than they already have been and are by this tax monstrosity. So there you go. Just one more story the IRS gives me this week. So now they're begging for everybody to get everything in line so we can handle our tax returns. Jeremy, you didn't have anything for me, were you? You were just writing down your order for your sandwich for lunch or dinner or whatever.
Club sandwich. Thank you very much.
Right, very good. Very good. I don't have enough time left in this show to go over all my stories. Let me just see. Which one do I really need to be going over? Do I talk about how much I bench pressed today? Do I talk about what kind of coffee I'm drinking? Oh, this is a real show. I'm sorry. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I can look on the clock and tell how much time I have to go. Folks, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Jeez, I'm getting bad. Maybe it was too much coffee today. I don't know. I really don't know. All right, maybe I'll share this one. There's just so much IRS stuff, but these are both IRS stories. One was on the Obamacare rule, and I'll talk about that next week because that's an ongoing thing. But here's an Inspector General report, and I can't make this stuff up, folks. A new Inspector General, or IG, report exposes yet more abuse and cover-ups at the IRS. And before I get into this report, I just want to re-clarify what I've said quite a few times. That is, even though I bash the IRS for all that is wrong with it, it does not mean I think the IRS employees are all bad. Most are probably great people. I'm guessing a very large majority are good, great people and good employees at similar levels as many companies or professions. It's just, it's the device. It's where they work, I guess. My main beef is just basically how poorly the IRS is set up primarily due to the horrendous tax code that they are required to enforce. Why am I using the word beef again, Jeremy? Am I like on a beef mission? Kind of like Toby Keith having a beef with Chadwick Burks.
That went into the recap this morning. Really?
Nice. I was on Chadwick Burke's show the other week, folks. He's on at 9 a.m. on Saturdays. He is funny. He works with he's a broker lender, basically, right? And he's very smart, but he's so quick and so funny. His show, his hour-long show, you wouldn't know he does teach you things during the show, but he's just so funny. You just, whatever. He's so funny, you don't even know you're listening, you're learning, you're just enjoying the show. But let me move on to my story. I'm going to run out of time. How can you tell me that any one company, basically, on the IRS, can comply with a 74,000-page manual and have their employees figure out how to best to service their clients? Well, that's what the IRS employees are doing. So they're all split apart. You know that. My problem does not lie within the IRS employees. It lies within the lawmakers that have written this tax code. And the lawmakers are powers that have used the IRS as a tool of abuse and torment. Sarah Westwood from the Washington Examiner reported a review of the Internal Revenue Service compliance with the Freedom Information Act found the agency intentionally withheld or failed to adequately search for requested information in hundreds of cases. In others, the IRS released more than it was authorized to release, dispensing sensitive taxpayer information, including individuals' bank records. The number of FOIA requests that had piled up in the agency's backlog jumped 84% at the end of the fiscal year 2013. And as of June 2014, the agency's backlog of requests had grown by an additional 16%. The Treasury Department Inspector General for Tax Administration found in a report made public Wednesday that they attributed the spike in backlogged information requests to the influx of exempt organization requests starting in June 2013. Was that when it was safe to go back on? I don't know. Most of us now, not living under a rock, know that it was learned in May 2013 that the IRS had targeted and harassed hundreds of Tea Party and conservative nonprofit applicants during the 2010 and 2012 campaigns, sparking a national scandal that culminated in congressional and criminal investigations. The IRS concealed information it should have released in response to an estimated 336 requests in 2013, according to this report. Despite its findings, TIGTA did not issue any recommendations. The watchdog instead suggested IRS officials implement the recommendations laid out in last year's review before addressing its latest findings. In September 17th of this year, the nonpartisan government watchdog group Judicial Watch filed a motion in its ongoing FOIA lawsuit against the IRS for documents related to the recovery of records the agency claims have been lost and or destroyed since news of the conservative targeting scandal broke. Judicial Watch claims the IRS has filed 7 declarations, omitting information it was required to release since the group first filed its FOIA request in May 2013. I'm telling you, I can't cover up these stories quickly enough. I can't cover them. I can't cover them quickly enough. It just keeps coming out that the IRS's ability to function in a manner that any of us should accept. So anyway, I'll see you at the theaters this Tuesday, folks. Thank you so much for listening on the show today. And remember, I have no beef with you. I just hope that you show up to the movie, and you'll see why so many of us have a beef, like Toby Keith. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, folks.